What if I told you that right now, tonight, someone is standing outside a window, just smiling? No knocking, no doorbell, just standing there, waiting. These are three real accounts submitted by real people across the United States. No monsters, no folklore, just human encounters that never got a clean explanation. And after hearing them, you may want to double-check your locks. I'm warning you now. Don't watch this alone. Let's get into it. My name is Nicholas. This happened when I was house-sitting for my grandmother while she visited Florida with some of her church friends. The house was quiet, comfortable, the kind of place where nothing ever happens. I settled into the guest bedroom, the one right next to hers, and before getting into bed, I did a full sweep of the house. Every door, locked, every window, secure. I'm not the type to skip that step. I wasn't tired, so I sat in bed scrolling my phone, texting friends, watching videos. Then somewhere around midnight, I heard it. A voice. Outside. A woman's voice. Just saying hello. Not shouting. Not screaming. Just a calm, measured hello every 10 seconds or so. I left the bedroom and crept toward the front door, staying quiet, trying to figure out where it was coming from. The door has no peephole, but the dining room window overlooks the front porch. So I slipped over and carefully angled my head through the blinds to look outside. And she was already looking at me. She was standing on the porch, a woman, probably late 50s, early 60s. Not frail, not helpless. Something about her face was just wrong. And the second my eyes met hers, she said, "Hello," again, with a smile. A slow, wide smile that didn't belong on anyone's face at midnight. I pulled back from the window. My mind started rationalizing. Maybe she's one of Grandma's friends? But who shows up at midnight without knocking? Who just stands at someone's door in the dark, repeating the same word over and over? I went back to the guest bedroom and shut the door. The voice stopped. Minutes passed. I told myself she probably left. I started texting my sisters. They told me to call our grandmother. But Grandma was asleep in Florida. She barely ever even looks at her phone. I was starting to calm down. And then the window exploded. Not literally, but the banging was so sudden and so violent that my chest seized up. Not a knock. Not a tap. A full force pounding on the glass just inches from where I'd been lying. My body went cold. Then silence. And then her voice. "Hello." Something took over me, adrenaline, anger, I don't know. I grabbed the blinds and yanked them up. She was right there, inches of glass between us, her face filling the entire window frame, still smiling. I yelled that I was calling the police. I dropped the blinds and ran. I bolted through the living room, up the stairs, and locked myself in the upstairs bedroom. I didn't call the cops. To this day, I don't know why. I just crawled under the covers and waited. A couple of hours passed. When I finally came back downstairs, I looked out every window. She was gone. The next morning, I called my grandmother and told her what happened. She immediately started yelling into the phone, not out of annoyance, out of fear. She told me that a few days earlier, a woman had been watching her at the grocery store, just staring, smiling for no reason. My grandmother is 75. I try not to read too much into everything she says, but the sound of her voice on that phone call, that genuine terror, I still think about it. Was it the same woman? I still don't have an answer. And honestly, that's what bothers me most. My name is Marcus. I'm a freshman at a university in upstate New York, and I want to be clear, I don't scare easily. I've grown up hearing about stranger danger. I know the warning signs. What happened to me still shakes me. I had just gotten out of a rough breakup and started using a dating app again. Just casual, nothing serious. I matched with a girl named Stephanie. We had a lot in common. The same taste in books, the same dark sense of humor, the same favorite movie genres. She went to my school. It felt natural. We planned a movie date. She said she'd pick me up and told me to meet her at a specific corner near campus around 9 at night. I waited. I shared my location with her like she asked. A few minutes later, headlights turned down the street. The car stopped in front of me. The window rolled down. It wasn't her. It was an older man, somewhere around 60. He asked what I was doing standing alone out there at night, which was already strange. I said I was waiting for someone. He leaned forward and asked, "You waiting for Stephanie?" I said yes. How did he know that? He said he was her father. He said he didn't trust strangers meeting his daughter and wanted to vet me first. He told me to get in the car. Something in my gut clenched. I looked at him, really looked, and something was off. I kept my voice calm and asked why he hadn't given me any heads up about picking me up. He repeated the same line about not trusting me. I turned and walked away. He called after me, "Hey, hey," sounding genuinely caught off guard that I wasn't just climbing into a stranger's car in the dark. I heard his engine. I turned to check. He drove straight and turned left. Gone. I kept walking toward campus. Then I saw the car again, parked on a side street with the lights off, windows tinted. I didn't slow down. I didn't react. I kept moving. My phone buzzed, a text from Stephanie, asking why I didn't get in the car with her dad. I ignored it and kept walking. When I reached an intersection, I turned right and ran. I sprinted. I got to campus out of breath and started heading toward my dorm. And then I heard footsteps. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then I heard the unmistakable sound of broken glass being kicked under a shoe. Someone was behind me, and they weren't trying to hide it anymore. I ducked behind a parked van and went completely still. The footsteps slowed. I heard them a few cars away. And then I remembered I never turned off my location sharing. I peered through the darkness and saw him, the old man, moving between the parked cars toward where I was crouched. He shouted something I could only partially make out. It sounded like, "Come back and I'll take you to her." I ran. He was 60-something. There was no chance he was keeping up with me. I made it back to my room, locked the door, and sat on the edge of my bed catching my breath. My roommate was out. I was alone. And then my phone lit up with a text from that number, a message so threatening I won't repeat it word for word, but it made clear that he intended to harm me and that he considered me lucky to have gotten away. I screenshot everything. I've saved all of it. I plan on going to the police. Was there ever a real Stephanie? I don't know. I never found out. But someone set up that entire situation, the location sharing, the car, the corner, and I almost walked right into it. When I was 18, I worked a part-time janitorial job at my old high school over the summer. Night shifts, sometimes going until midnight. Most nights I ended up alone in the building, locking up after the other staff left. The school was old, quiet, and at that point, had no cameras in most of the hallways. One night my supervisor, Tom, had to leave early. He gave me the usual, "Text if you need anything," and walked out. I figured I'd finish the last task he left me and call it a night. He needed me to bring folding chairs from the gym down to the basement storage room. The basement was not a welcoming place. The lighting was dim and uneven, and the space had that cold, industrial feeling, more like the underbelly of a warehouse than a school. Stored around the room were what looked like art mannequins, each one draped in large paint cloths. The school's art department stored a lot of its supplies down there. I dropped the first stack of chairs and went back upstairs for more. When I came back down the second time, I noticed something immediately. One of the cloths had been removed. A mannequin near the front of the room was now fully exposed. The cloth that had been covering it was gone. I was certain it had been covered minutes ago. I texted Tom. He said no one else should be in the building. I looked around the room more carefully, and that's when I noticed something in the far corner, outside the main ring of light in the center of the room. There was a cloth on the floor, piled up against the wall. But it wasn't flat. It had shape, and as I stood there watching, I realized that shape was moving. Just slightly. Just enough to know something was breathing under it. I ran. I bolted up the stairs and locked the basement door. Texted Tom. Someone is hiding under a cloth down there. Tom told me to call the police. I begged him to just come back. He'd only left 10 minutes ago. He refused. He told me to go confront whoever was down there myself. I went back down. The cloth was flat on the floor, empty. Whoever had been under it was gone. I stood in the middle of that storage room trying to process what I was seeing, and then came the sound. Loud metallic banging from directly above my head. I looked up at the large ceiling vents. Dents were forming in the metal, slowly, rhythmically, from the inside. Someone was crawling through the ventilation system directly above me. They stopped right over my position. And then the banging changed, heavier, deliberate, like they were trying to break through the floor of the vent and come down. That was it for me. I didn't wait. I ran upstairs, locked every exit I could, and left the building entirely. The next day, I told Tom a partial version of the truth. I said I thought I saw someone in the corner, and then couldn't find them. I left out the rest. It was my last week on the job anyway. I never found out who was in that building with me. I never found out how they got in. And part of me, the part that still thinks about the sound of something moving in those vents directly over my head, isn't sure I actually want to know. 3 people, 3 encounters, no clean endings. The woman who just said hello. The man who was supposed to be a father. The thing in the vents that was watching and waiting. What's most unsettling isn't the unknown. It's how ordinary these situations started. A quiet house. A first date. A late night shift. Any of us could have been in these exact moments. If any of this happened to you, if you've had your own encounter that never got a proper explanation, drop it in the comments. I read everything. Stay alert, and I'll see you in the next one.